Good evening, welcome to Enough Rope on the Road, coming to you again from London. My guests tonight are without doubt the most successful and famous English comedy duo of this century. From 3 successful TV series to an extraordinary live stage show that's played to more than 1 million people, to a book, everything they do turns to gold, or vomit, or sometimes streams of unstoppable wee. From Little Britain, David Walliams and Matt Lucas, welcome.
Hello.
Thank you very much. What a lovely introduction.
I got very excited there when he said the last century.
And I realised it's a short century.
Exactly, yeah. I thought, well, that's
years.
surely not Peter Cook and Dublin. And then, I thought...
No, definitely you.
Been about 5 years. But still very nice.
Thank you.
Now, congratulations on your first show in London last night. You've been travelling the country. What was it like for you to play in London, to some extent, in front of an audience of your peers?
It was quite scary. I mean, it was strange. It was like it was the first night again, even though we'd done 150 odd shows. But I think that's because we knew there were a lot of comedians there and a lot of people sort of from the industry. But, you know, it went really well, and it's, you know, the show always seems to get people laughing. So we didn't panic.
No, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I mean, it is weird because you're about, well, a few hundred people in the audience haven't paid for their tickets because they're kind of guests. And I think, so it is a bit harder, actually, to make them laugh.
Yeah, it's a little different than people are really excited to see you, but it's great.
A few times last night, there was a very interesting exchange between you about Matt's sexual preferences.
And David's,
which was an even better moment. Are you genuinely surprising each other?
Yeah,
we
like to, because I think it sort of keeps the show fresh. I mean, occasionally something comes out of improvisation and then you might work on it and then try and find a way to keep it in and sort of rewrite it in a way. Because actually, all writing is improvisation. When we sit at a table together and write, that is improvising. So that's okay, I think, to build from it. But generally, we always try and bring new things to every show, and that's what keeps it exciting for us.
Yeah, it makes it exciting for us if it's going to be different every night. And we built in bits in the live show where there's audience interaction. Marjorie, as the Fat Fighters group leader, goes out to the audience and finds someone to get on stage, and I do this character Des Kay, this children's entertainer, and get a couple of guys out and end up pulling down their trousers.
A lot of people last night saw you grab this guy from the audience, pull down his trousers, and thought, well, that's an actor, obviously.
I know, loads of people came up to me afterwards and said that's
must have been a plant, because they've never seen anybody being dragged from the audience, have their trousers down and their bottom kissed before.
No.
This is a first.
Why can you get away with it in England?
Because I think we're just a lot more open to these kind of experiences in England. I don't know.
What does it say about Britain?
I don't know. I think because it's meant in fun and stuff. I think if I injured somebody, that would be different. But
I think the
kiss on
presence
the
of-
bottom is a nice thing, isn't it?
The presence of the audience legitimises that sort of behaviour. Now, if you'd done that in a room where it was just you and him, that wouldn't be acceptable.
Well, that happened later.
Yeah.
But,
Then it becomes a political scandal. That's quite different.
But we love taking people out of the audience and including them and
But that's what amazes me is there's a lot of risk in what you do. I know that, for instance, Matt, when you do Marjorie Dawes, that you're looking for a fat person from the audience.
Yeah.
And it hasn't always gone exactly to script, has it? Or
No,
as you would hope.
Not at all. And, I mean, who knows what can happen? And sometimes people get up on stage and they outwit me, which is great, you know, because you want as many laughs in the show as possible. And obviously, they're then taken backstage and killed.
Of course.
But it's just it's fun, you know. And like I say, it keeps it fresh for us.
Is she partly based on your mum?
Well, no. This is kind of a misconception that's come about because the character, the way her voice is a little bit like the way my mum talks, just vocally. But no, I mean, the character started off on a show called Shooting Stars. But then I think the character, as it appears in Little Britain, is quite different. That's very much authored by the two of us, you know, and I think the character is very different from what it was. And I went to Weight Watchers as a kid, and David had some experience, was kind of a chubby kid as well. And so we both had, you know, some kind of experience of having to diet and stuff like that. And one of the original Fat Fighters sketches, which we did in the pilot, was about a little boy going to Fat Fighters and Marjorie kind of bullying him. So it's not really based on my mum. My mum isn't quite as cruel as she is.
I mean, it was obvious last night and around the country, people absolutely love you. What kind of groupies do you get?
He gets the groupies.
well, hang on. I haven't had many groupies.
You get the girls.
Well, what girls?
You get the guy. He's got a websites, and
They're not my websites. They're
Un-
websites
unofficial
run by
websites.
girls.
Oh, I see, yes.
By,
Where girls can register, or...?
I don't really know. Well, they just chat amongst themselves. There's something called the David Walliams Lusting Forum, but it hasn't been much activity on it recently. I'm quite disappointed.
But
You-
what
do you
happened
check
is
it
like
regularly?
Yeah, of course I do. I think, what sexual fantasies do people have about me? I quite like to read them.
you know, like I occasionally go on. I don't post, but I go on because it's quite kind of
Post
fun.
under another name.
Under another name, and your name, in fact, and Andrew Denton, probably. And David, as you know, swam the English Channel for charity amazingly, but he had to bulk up and put on some weight because you have to have body fat to, as they say, insulate you against the cold. And if you go on the forum, because David strips off at the end of the show, there'd be kind of bitchy comments. Oh, he's put on loads of weight, because they didn't know why he was putting the weight on. So you can't take these comments too personally, can you?
Actually, that is amazing, because you strip completely naked and stick your penis between your legs. I don't wish to spoil
That's
show
the
for anyone.
polite way of saying it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I create a mangina.
Yeah, that's right. And, of course, you, Matt, in Daffod's outfit, so you're completely unashamed about your bodies. That must be very liberating.
Well, so either that or we'll do anything for a laugh. It's one of the two. Well, Matt always says there's no vanity in comedy, and I think that's true. You kind of got to make yourself look stupid, and I think we love people who sort of clown around and make themselves look foolish, and that's always what we're trying to do. And I think, especially with the kind of comedy we're doing, we're dragging people up the audience. We don't want to remain cool and be like in control and cool. I think we should be stupid too, and everyone should join in this real sort of circus of stupidity,
It's no loss for me. I've never been cool. I've never been cool remotely in my life. As a kid, I was, a fan of this Scottish group, the Proclaimers, who I still love, who are the least cool, these spectral twins. And I'm crazy about Queen, and when I was a kid, when I was 16 and all my friends had long hair and were listening to Pearl Jam and Nirvana, I had no hair and was listening to Queen. So for me, I can't worry about vanity and coolness, and I just look at myself in the mirror, and I think it's like, let's make the joke about ourselves before somebody else does.
Because I know that when you were young, Matt, you had a lot of, you're a fat kid, and that.
You
that's
wouldn't
a tough
think
thing
it now
do.
to look at me, but yes, I was an overweight child.
You've moved on, well done.
Yeah, I put myself on a diet actually recently, but yeah, I mean, you have all these issues about yourself, so it's a way of it's kind of like damage limitation, isn't it? I mean, you always read that I mean, I wasn't really bullied, but you always read that comedians were bullied at school and they made jokes to kind of protect themselves, and I didn't really have that problem, but I had weight issues and kind of concerns about being gay, or I lost my hair when I was 6, just those sort of things that you sort of seek to define yourself, and
It must be fantastic now to all those things. You just flaunt them. It must be fantastic to.
Yeah, well, makeup artists love me because it's like a blank canvas. There's no worrying about. I mean, he has to put on bald caps and all that sort of thing, don't you?
Oh, I know, it's awful.
Can we talk about the genesis of some of your other characters?
Yeah.
Vicky Pollard, in particular. I know she'd be no one person, but you've drawn her from somewhere. Where's she come from?
I think, if I remember rightly, part of the inspiration for that was I was at university and we were set a task. We were put into groups of 4 and we were asked to go out with a video camera and make a 6-minute documentary. And our group made one called How Are You?, where we went into Bristol city centre, which is in the southwest, and we went out to people kind of randomly on camera and said, how are you? And then we cut together a montage of replies. And it was just a fun piece, but there was one little boy, actually, who was about 12, and I sort of said, how are you? And he went, sort of like, finer, I don't know. And do you mind me asking you that question? Yeah, all I do, or something, I don't know, or something, I don't know, or nothing. And we were watching this tape later on, weren't we? And we just saw that there was the least articulate person in Britain. But with Vicky, she's the least articulate person in Britain. But why is she inarticulate? Well, because she's always done something wrong. So she's using the fast talking and the new but new to kind of buy herself time.
Now, in the face of the overwhelming evidence we've heard today against you, do you stand by your plea of not guilty?
No, but you're back new, because what happened was, right, was this thing happened what you don't even know nothing about. Shut up, I wasn't even supposed to be anywhere even near there. And then Meredith came over and started stirring it all up, started calling me all these things, like about this thing, what I don't even know about or something like that.
We've created a lot of characters, and some have become famous, and some have kind of gone nowhere, and more often they go nowhere. But sometimes you get really lucky. Another one is Lou and Andy, which just came really quite quickly, and you sort of don't entirely know where it comes from. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people say to us, "Oh, did you meet those characters on the bus or something like that?" And it's not really like that. It just sort of tumbles out of you.
Well, they were inspired by Lou Reed and Andy Warhol.
Yeah, kind of.
Which is an extraordinary thought.
Well, we did this sketch. We did another show called Rock Profile, which was spoofs of pop stars, and we did our own take on Lou Reed and Andy Warhol, which for some reason I started doing Lou Reed in this kind of voice.
And he was even a hangover from a character we'd done years before.
Yeah.
And then
I was just doing Andy Warhol like that, you know. That's a little bit more Scouse than Andy, but
And
like that.
we were just doing this sketch where I was kind of going into his room and saying, "Right, Andy, what would you like for your tea?"
Chippy.
"Well, you're having chippy for your lunch. If you have chippy for your tea, you can't have it for your lunch.
Yeah, no.
So what do you want for your tea?"
Chippy.
Yeah. So it just sort of went on like that, and we kind of put it aside, forgot about it, and then when we were coming to Little Britain, we thought, oh yeah, there was something in that relationship, in this sort of those two characters together, and sort of Lou and Andy were born, and then the wheelchair. We thought, oh, well, it would be great if he was in a wheelchair, but kind of be better maybe if he got out of the wheelchair. You know, these ideas sometimes tumble out.
Can you do Vicky Pollard's voice? Because I know when no, really.
I can't really. I played a character sort of
Kelly.
like Vicky Pollard, but it's very hard, and I don't, you know, it only seems to be Matt that can do it. So
Where did you get that skill, Matt? That's to speak that fast.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know where I got that, really. At school, I would always impersonate people and stuff like
it's
that.
not easy to do, though, is it?
What, Vicky Pollard?
No, I mean, it takes a lot of takes and stuff like that. so
Yeah,
it's not-
yeah. It's
really-
a weird thing to do on stage, actually, because my instincts are to actually do it faster than I do it on stage. But I think, you know, I could just go, oh my God, I still can't believe you just said that because the whole thing was out of order, or something like that, but I wouldn't be heard. So it's better to do it a bit slower and get the laughs. But it's fun, but I can't drive. You know, and
it's a
I've no
life skill.
self-discipline. Look how fat I am. So actually, some skills I have, and some more basic, perhaps more important skills I don't have. So, you know, but yeah, that's just something I can do. I mean, I think David has a great ability to do physical comedy, which, you know, I don't think I'm so strong at, and I kind of marvel at David's kind of physicality, really, in his roles. So I think that's a great skill.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Nice. He's also
true.
an
Very
incredibly prolific with ideas, you know, because we write everything together. We sit together at a desk, but he'll always come up with more ideas than me, you know.
Well, I'm
and he's just
fascinated
very
with
good
this.
at that. And what he's brilliant at, you see, my ideas come through. I just, you know, I was trying to think of an idea last night, and I just come up. I'll think of the funny thing that they say. Then I have to think, why the hell are they saying that? And how can we craft that into something? Whereas David, I think, is brilliant at starting at the joke, and then we find the characterisation. So again, David comes and says, "Oh, the teenager who has a crush on his friend's grandmother." Well, that's brilliant, and that's what I don't do as well. I don't think I come out with that brilliant, perfectly formed comic idea. But we're always together when we flesh it out. We're always together when we write it, when we think of the names, the looks, the performance, the feel and tone.
Yeah, because a lot of people sort of go, well, your characters and your characters, you know, as if somehow Matt's off writing, you know, Vicky Pollard and Daffod and whatever, and then I'm just off writing Emily and Sebastian, and there's no. But I mean, it's not like that at all, and I don't feel any lesser part of Daffod because I'm not playing it. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, we work very closely together on all those.
Comedy
things.
writing is really hard work. People that don't do it don't realise how hard it is. Do you make each other laugh all the time?
That's the aim. I mean, I don't say all the time, but when we're onto a good thing and we've come up with something funny that we believe is funny, we are laughing, because we are trying to, you know, we're trying to amuse ourselves, and the hope is to then start amusing other people as well. But you know, you'll have a day when you're writing and there'll be laughter, or sometimes uncontrollable laughter, sometimes about things that we know we can't possibly put in the show because they're too rude or too...
And that's the question, because, you know, you've got projectile vomiting, streams of urine. These are the acceptable ideas. What are the ones that aren't?
Well, I can't say, but I mean, there's Groucho Marx once said this thing. He said, for a normal person, a man dressed up as an old lady careering down a hill in a wheelchair is funny. For a comedian, it needs to be a real old lady. And I think it's a wonderful way of thinking that somehow comedians, and, you know, when we're around friends who are comedians, the kind of stuff they come up with is very, very dark. And I just think it's almost just a sort of desire to sort of shock each other, really.
Yeah.
I think we do have a sort of slight naughtiness. We've never sort of lost that rather naughty, rather sort of juvenile, attempt to shock, you know, which has been great for this as a show, but obviously it's, you know...
Critics don't like it, though, I think.
You know, sometimes critics complain about those kind of things.
What was it like a critic was saying yesterday? Because there's this perception that we're now richer than the Sultan of Brunei or something, and one of the critic went, when they have finished counting their cash, perhaps they would do well to ponder the excesses, you know, because like the British press are so kind of puritanical and pompous, and it's just kind of funny to read that stuff. And it makes you naughtier. You know, it makes you naughtier and more mischievous. If we're told don't do it, we'll do it twice.
You know, we were doing, the night before, we were doing a preview, and I saw a critic in the audience writing things, and when I come out as Anne, and I sort of flash, and I run out the audience, putting my bum in people's faces and doing that, I saw the critic, and I made sure I went up to him and went, and put my arse in his face like that. So those are the kind of decisions I'm making on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It's your workplace, isn't it? If someone came from another culture, you could never explain it to them. It was like this extraordinary carnival of the grotesque, but this great release of humour from everyone.
Yeah, I think it is done with affection, and that's why we do get families and we do get older people come to our show and kids, and, you know. But, I mean, an example of that is I saw a 5-year-old on the front row recently in the audience, and as Marjorie, I went, how old are you? She's got up and said 5. I said, well, you have to be 5.5 to watch this show, I'm afraid, and you'll have to go. And I made her sort of walk as if she was going out without her parents. So quite cruel. But there is generally an affection in what we do, and although it is grotesque, I think, you know, people do pinpoint, the vomiting or the peeing or whatever, but actually, you know, Vicky is, as often as she's rude, she's just plain daft.
Yes.
You know, and Daffod is there's a truth there, but he's absurd.
We always wanted some moments that were shocking. We always wanted a moment where you would go into work or school or wherever the next day and go, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. That to me is a sort of... I always loved that when I was watching shows like The Young Ones growing up, and even Monty Python, think of The Meaning of Life, and the Mr. Creosote section in that, you know, the vomiting and the exploding body. I mean, it's just incredible, and that was something, when I was a kid, that we used to talk about endlessly.
We met the king of Australia, Barry Humphries, recently.
Yes.
We were talking about recipes for vomit.
And it's the Queen as well. Recipes, because he's done that with fruit salad.
Yeah, he suggests lemonade. He says something fizzy. You need something fizzy.
But he's a great understander, I think, in that comedy is often to do with the sort of physicality, and those things are a big part of comedy. You know, that things being kind of vulgar and bodily functions, all those things. I think they're things that we do enjoy laughing at, and he's never been afraid to laugh at those things.
The other thing Barry has, through many of his characters, is a kind of loving contempt for suburbia. Is that something you guys relate to?
Yeah, I mean, with our characters, they're characters from lots of different walks of life, in that, you know, we have the Bitty sketches, the guy who's breastfeeding his mother, and that, in some ways, you know, they're a very posh family, and in some ways the sketches are sort of satire on posh people and how they get away with more because people don't challenge them because they're posh, or Vicky Pollard's common. But I don't think there's sort of that contempt. I just think we like to sort of send up everything. But I think behind it all is maybe, as I was saying about wanting to shock, is just wanting to explode the idea of what's acceptable. Bitty.
Now, look. If you have Bitty now, you're not going to want any supper, are you?
I want Bitty.
Come along, then. Sorry, Jane, do carry on.
I grew up with a desire to just do something kind of extreme, and you can see that the show is sort of bursting with that kind of energy, you know, and all the characters are kind of really kind of intense and vivid, and it
must be a very powerful feeling to be able to shake everything.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's very, very exciting, and you know, I mean, we started off doing a show together at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and we started off at midnight, and the only way for the audience to get to the toilet was to walk across the stage, and everyone was very drunk because of Edinburgh, and, you know, it was late at night. And I think right from the start, when we were performing together, we also had to be very kind of competitive and present because we were fighting against, you know, a drunk audience who were walking through the stage. So we had to come with that kind of
it was very
intensity, and I think
assertive.
we've never
wasn't it?
we've never lost that. I don't think.
Well, it mentions in the book that your first shows at the community centre, where there are audiences of less than a dozen people.
Oh yeah. Well, there was in my head there is, because we disagree about how many people, but in my head there were 10 people at our first gig, 4 of whom rang up before the show and said, "We're watching EastEnders. Is it possible to delay the start of the show until we get there?" And we said yes, of course. And we were quite chuffed that
very strange
they were coming.
performing to 10 people.
But the initial reviews
But it went
described the
well.
shows as I think fierce, hostile, and abrasive. Where was that coming from? That
I
sort
think
of anger?
it was coming from being in the battleground of the Edinburgh Festival, which
I think we were young as well.
we were very
I mean, it was
young.
sort of 10 years ago, so we were just starting out, and so we didn't quite know how to craft things yet, did we? So
No,
there
but
was a lot of shock value.
A lot of shock, but it was a very competitive arena, and so you want to make a name for yourself, you want to sell tickets in some way or other. And we did used to do things. We used to go and see shows, and we'd see people performing in these really hot, sweaty little rooms and with very limited resources, but they'd do their best to kind of make a set. They'd have a sort of crappy old wobbly table and old 2 chairs that didn't match, and maybe a overhead projector, and it was all a bit sad, really. So we kind of went the other way, and we thought, let's celebrate this lack of resources. So we tried to make the set look as crummy as possible on purpose.
We actually had rubbish. We put rubbish onto the stage before we started.
And on the seats, we used to go and collect black bin liners, and then I'd look in them and find those half-eaten tubs of ice cream that people eat in the theatre, and I'd sort of slightly spill them over seats, so somebody would have to sit on
I
a
don't
wet seat.
entirely know why we did that.
I
but
don't know,
For some
but-
reason, we thought that was a good thing to do.
Well, what we liked was the sense that it was neglected, and that these characters that we were playing, who were with this washed-up old actor and his stage manager who was sprung from prison, who were these incredibly irresponsible pair. That they somehow, this was the only slot they could get.
Yeah,
and you're in our world now. This is our territory.
a messy, awful, disgusting world. Yeah.
Nouveau seedy.
I mean, we really like that, you know. But I think we were young, and we thought probably that was clever as well.
Reading the book about you, it's fascinating that you came from very different backgrounds. When you met, did you have the same sense of humour, or was it a different sense of humour that complemented each other?
We met in the National Youth Theatre, which is like a voluntary organisation for aspiring actors that takes place in the summer holidays, so you don't miss school or anything. And, you know, you can be in it working backstage, or if you're into makeup, or if you're into acting or set design or whatever, you know. We also loved Frankie Howard and Kenneth Williams and things like that. Campery.
We were just kind of greedy to experience any kind of comedy whatsoever and talk about it endlessly. But I think the idea of actually being able to sort of write and, you know, come up with characters and all that was still quite a kind of a hard concept to get your head around. But it was something that we were just sort of were dreaming of at that time. But we were just friends who talked about, you know, comedy together. And
Yeah, so we were friends for 4 years before we even wrote a word together.
I know when you were young, Matt, and you know, being bald and being fat and so on, you used to sort of create characters in your head. When did they first come out of your head and appear in the real world?
Well, probably the first character that I kind of performed to people, there were 2 things. One for me was going to a party when I was about 15, and I remember staying up late and doing impressions of all the teachers and having the whole room, about 50 people, just in hysterics. And that kind of was this moment for me. That was like, wow. Because I'd done school plays and things, but as an actor, but that was like, wow. But then then I used to joke with my brother. We sort of created this character of Bernard Chumley, this old actor. And I used to kind of bug my friends with it when I was at college, probably before I'd met David or before I was doing the comedy circuit. And that character was what we did in our first Edinburgh shows, and what it appears in the first series of Little Britain as well.
I was interested to read, David, your parents said they don't particularly recall you being funny as a child.
Well, I don't think I could really make them laugh or delight them in any way, just to pull them. So
Do they laugh now?
Yeah, they like it now. They were there last night when we were opening in London, and they love it. But I just think they just thought I was a bit weird, really, and they wanted me to go out and have some fun, and I would just be sort of, you know, in my bedroom listening to sort of Monty Python records and Tony Hancock records and things like that. So, but yes, I couldn't delight them in a kind of way of saying kind of witty, funny things. I think they were just...
Did you have a moment like Matt where you suddenly thought, I can do this?
Started off, yeah, doing things at school. Like twice a year, your class would take the assembly, and normally it would just be somebody reading from a book like that, and, trying to get it over with. And I would go, great, OK, we're going to do a production, we're going to do a spoof of a game show like Blankly Blank. I don't know if you had that in Australia, but yeah, and it's like, OK, and we're going to get teachers out of the audience, I'm going to put custard pies in their faces, I'm going to be a character, we're all going to do this. And I really love that. And so twice a year, you know, I had my little playground of something to do, and I'd do school plays too. And I think doing those assemblies really kind of made me think, yeah, I was really excited. And also, I would, again, like Matt explained, excited at the kind of kudos that gave you, because people like to laugh, you know, and they value it very highly as a gift, you know. And if you're not good at sport, and maybe you're not, you know, good looking and all that kind of thing, it's like something that is a very powerful thing to be able to do.
Aside from comedy, what do you two have in common?
Well, we have a kind of shared love of music, I think, because kind of music plays a big part in our lives, and it's always on when we're writing. Chocolate, we used to be very disciplined, but we have been tucking into chocolate recently.
When do you argue?
On January the 5th every year, we meet up. We go, this is the day to argue.
Bash it out.
No, occasionally, you know. But I think it is very occasional. Probably like once this year, and it's now October. But the thing is, I don't think that's an unusual thing. I think people think, you know, that if you're making creative work together, you never ever had a disagreement about anything. I mean, you had a vicious, violent argument, that would be a bad thing. But if you had a creative argument, that's no bad thing. You need to have that.
Also, I think an argument is a sign of intimacy. So sometimes the people go, oh, we had an argument or something. That shouldn't be confused with the idea that we're not close or something like that, or anything's in jeopardy, you know. And what we usually try and do is have the argument, but resolve the argument and then move on.
Well, it was clear watching you on stage last night that you really like each other. That was very clear. The history of comedy duos is not always like that. There's often enmity and jealousy, you know, Martin and Lewis for one. How mindful are you of protecting this friendship?
I think we are respectful of the act, you know. It's something you have to learn, you know, something I've definitely had to learn, and I have to work on. That you have to be respectful of what you've got, respectful of the fact that people like it, you know. And the truth is that most people who split up go off and do their own things, and they're not as good, you know. That is the truth, you know, and you have to just you know, be sensible about it.
Look, it comes across as a real friendship. Matt,
we share a dressing room, which we don't have to do. You know, I just say that we don't
just
have
so I
to.
can see Matt shower.
He likes it.
I can understand.
It's something he likes. I like being watched.
Yes.
We share, you know, but we sort of don't have to do that. There's a massive theatre with loads of rooms, and the assumption is that we don't share a dressing room, or we don't need to, or, you know, sometimes...
But, you know, we're doing a show together, and it's an intimate thing, you know. It'd just be weird if I was up somewhere else and we just meet on stage, and, you know, you hear those kind of stories about people who've fallen out but still having to do the show. You think, what misery. I mean, even somebody we know quite well was in a show a few years back and saying that towards the end they were just not speaking other than on stage. And you think, oh God,
why do
who
it?
would want to live through that, you know?
Matt, you credit David with helping you come out, is that right?
Well, I suppose when I was in my late teens, in my early teens, I kind of realised, okay, I'm, you know, I have a same-sex attraction. And
that's the title of your autobiography, isn't it?
Same-sex attraction. It's great, isn't it? And being around someone like David really helped me, because he was very daring and kind of very mischievous. And I assumed he was gay. He had a girlfriend, he has a girlfriend, whatever.
Funny how you could come up with that.
Yeah. Where did that come from? But I just assumed, but he was just very provocative, and just occasionally we'd go out and he would wear a Jean-Paul Gaultier skirt and a hair clip and some painted nails or something like that. But you had a girlfriend at the time who used to dress you up like that, you know.
Yeah,
so
fantastic.
it was just having someone around who ultimately just wasn't going to give a monkey's what my sexuality was to me very helpful, because actually I was born in 74, so when I was in my kind of mid-teens, you know, Thatcher was still in government. There was this thing, Clause 28, which was kind of really weird, the promotion of homosexuality in schools illegal. I don't quite know how you promote homosexuality. Do you sell it at half price? I don't know what that means. And it was quite a homophobic time in Britain, and it's so much easier now. You know, it's so much easier. But yeah, David, I think, played, for me, a big part of that, you know.
And David, you beautifully described yourself as 70% heterosexual. Is the other 30% undecided?
Well, it's strange sitting with you now. I feel it's 50-50.
I understand.
That man, we did this interview with this strange man and said, what did he say, what's your heterosexuality percentage
I
or
don't
something?
know. It was sort of about taste, really, you know, not, you know, in terms of what kind of music you like and things
It's a
like
great
that.
line, though. I mean, it
Well, it's
must
good.
make women want to convert you all the time.
That's the idea. That's why I put that out there. I can't believe anybody's 100% anything, man, are they?
I'm 100% with you.
But I quite like women as well, you see, and that's kind of a bit airbrushed out. But I mean, whatever, I don't mind,
Yeah.
you know, whatever.
Now, I have to ask you, people in Australia don't believe this because it happened here. You swam the English Channel earlier this year.
Yeah, I swam from...
Let me explain to people who don't know the English Channel. It's a kind of, it's the equivalent of swimming about 6 lengths of a swimming pool.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's not that big a thing,
Whatever,
obviously.
you know what I mean? Like,
One of the
whatever.
50 fastest swims of all time.
Yeah.
21 miles, is it?
Yeah, it's a
Or
bit further.
Longer
yeah.
as the tide flows.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about out there?
Well, I mean, I did it for a charity, Comic Relief.
Yeah.
Me and Matt went to Ethiopia the year before and saw a lot of the great work the charity does there. It was there where I agreed to do it. So I had a lot to think about in terms of the people we'd met there and how this was going to help. It ended up raising like £1 million. And so in those really dark times, because the worst thing about it is you're just so cold, you know, and I was training and sometimes you're so cold you can't even put your fingers together to do a stroke, you know, and that's what makes you miserable. And in those times I just think about the people that we'd met and think about, you know, how this was going to help them. We went to like an orphanage where there was all these little girls, and we were told by the people who ran the orphanage that every one of those girls had been raped or sexually abused on the street, and luckily they were now safe because they were in this orphanage. And I was just thinking, well, God, you know, all I have to do is swim, just keep swimming, and, you know, this money will help keep them safe, you know, maybe, you know, a number of years. And I just realised I had this opportunity in my life to do something, you know, quite special, and I just really just took it on, embraced it. You know, I went to all the training, did all the training, I did everything I was asked to do, and luckily it turned out right. But it's amazing what it does to your thinking, because you take on something you think's impossible and you achieve it. It's very liberating.
Matt, has this inspired you to...
Oh no, don't say that, because I went to my mum's recently and she said, it's wonderful. I mean, what David has done is wonderful. Have you thought about what you could do to raise £1 million? I thought, I don't know. Any ideas on a postcard? I don't know, really. I mean, I think what David has done is incredible, you know.
I mean, we did a DVD the year before for Comic Relief of Little Britain. We had Elton John and George Michael and Robbie Williams, and we sold that in the shops here, and that raised £2 million, and we're planning to do more work for Comic Relief next year. So I just think it's a bizarre one-off thing that I stupidly said I was going to swim the channel. So I don't think it's now like I'm going to do anything else, or, you know, Matt needs to do something similar or anything like that. I think, you know, we're very committed to this charity, and we're going to, you know, carry on working for Comic Relief as long as they want us to. So that's the important thing, really.
I said in the introduction that the extraordinary success of Little Britain, is it your nightmare that in 30 years' time you'll still be saying, I'm a lady and the only gay in the village, because that's all people want to hear from you?
Well, it's possible, I suppose.
I mean, I interviewed Eric Idle the other day for Radio Times, and it's strange, you know, he's promoting Spamalot, his musical of, you know, the Holy Grail, and you know, he's still talking about Monty Python, and the series finished in the early 70s. The last film they made was 1983. that's you know.
Yeah.
But it's a defining thing. I mean, if you have a success on this kind of level, you know, it will define you. But there are, I'm sure, other challenges to come. You know, and I'm sure we can move on and make other work. But maybe at the end of the day, you know, if we die and on the news they'll show a clip of Matt as Vicky Pollard and me as Emily Howard, and you just kind of got to live with that, really.
When they bury you, they're going to put you in a dress.
I hope so. I hadn't thought of that. But I would like that Lisa Stansfield song, I may not be a lady, but I'm all woman, as the coffin drifts off into the distance.
I think it's probable that this is, you know, maybe the biggest ratings we'll ever have, or, you know, it's probable. And you know, for that I feel blessed, because we may never have got anything close to what we've done. And so you have your own criteria to satisfy, which is we have to keep challenging ourselves creatively, we have to keep making ourselves laugh, we have to do those sort of things. But I think that's all we can do. I don't think we can think in terms of this isn't as big as that.
Last question, you're coming to Australia next year. What are your demands?
Well, the Australian girls are very pretty, aren't they? Mm-hmm. You can't demand them. But,
They have to register at your website.
I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of the Australian girls. Mm. In fact, a lot of British comics go off to Australia and do the festivals, and they come back with Australian wives.
Yeah.
So I will probably find my wife in Australia.
Yeah. And Matt, you?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm really looking forward to is the Mardi Gras, because I think we're out there at about the same time, and I know that some people dress up as the only gay in the village on their floats and things like that. So I'd love to go and see that, because you always hear the myth of the Sydney Mardi Gras.
It's
and I would
enormous.
love to see that, yeah.
It's enormous.
Yeah.
Well, God knows you've got the outfits for it. You should just join in.
30% of me will be going.
Of course, yes. David, Matt, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you in Australia and really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Andrew.
Next week, join Andrew with actor-comedian Billy Crystal when Enough Rope returns. And tomorrow, join UK comedian Michael McIntyre in Birmingham with the brightest talents in stand-up comedy on Michael McIntyre's Comedy Roadshow, 9:20 tomorrow night on ABC One. But coming up shortly, the series final of East of Everything.